Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we have what's hopefully the final update of our Season 1 Rec Guide for War Within Season 1. We're doing this because we had some big shake-up to the Paladin talent tree. So we've been talking about that I was going to have to do this video when this week came, and we are here. I'm very happy I did not rush this video out the day of and waited till the next day to do this video, because there was a lot of misconceptions and there's a lot of stuff to talk about. There was so much uncertainty as well. There were some things that went live that maybe shouldn't have went live and got changed and whatnot. And so now we're here a little bit more settled and we can kind of talk about everything. We are going to go through all of the talents here, especially the new ones. We won't spend too much time on talents that, already existed, but we are going to go through the talents here on the Paladin side. I will try to hold my mouse over them long enough for people to read them. No promises. I don't know how fast you all read, but I will try to do that. But we'll go through all the talents. But first, let's talk about the changes and how they're affecting people. Right? I think there's a lot of misconceptions here. There were some people really angry yesterday. I was mostly making jokes about it because I knew it wasn't that serious. After testing some stuff when it went live or whatever, but so it wasn't that serious. It's pretty much the expected nerf, right? It was projected to be about a 3% nerf. I find that to be pretty much accurate, maybe even like a 2% nerf, at least for my character. So, basically, the big things that changed was on the Paladin tree. They got rid of Seal of Order. So down here, and when we get to these, and I realize it's behind my camera. I'll, again, try to keep my mouse over so you can see it. Of Dusk and Dawn is still a thing. But there was another thing called like Seal of Order that reduced the cooldown of our generators, Blade of Justice or whatever, as an example. And so that was removed. So that removes a little bit of damage. That's not too much, honestly, but it is something, right? You get more generators, you technically get more damage, and you get your damage faster and to your windows and to your execution sentence and stuff like that, right? So it is a nerf. But the big thing was losing Seal of Alacrity, I believe it's called. Yeah, because this one's Seal of Might, which is the 4% haste. And so what we were seeing yesterday on patch day was a lot of people who, let's say, were at like a low haste already, because right now it's much more beneficial for you to get to a solid mastery number and a solid crit number than to get to that solid haste number. So there's people that were already playing at like 12, 13% haste, a very low haste number, and then they lost 4% haste. So it feels awful if that's the case, right? For me, I was at like 17, like just under 17, I would say. And I dropped down to 12, right? Like, you would round up to 17 kind of, and then I drop down to 12 where I round down to 12. And it feels bad. But if you were already at 12, then that feels extremely awful for you. Like if you're that low, like if it feels that bad, I would actually advise just putting on something with haste, even if you lose 5k DPS or something like that. Play with a little bit more haste than that, because it feels terrible to play that way. And just losing 4% stats is a nerf, right? And like if you lose 4% crit, it's going to be a nerf. If you lose 4% mastery, it's going to be a nerf. If you have 10% verse and you lose 4% of it, it's going to feel like a nerf, because it is, right? And it ends up being about a 3% nerf, like was projected. I'll give the math people credit there, because it's pretty darn close to that for single target. For AoE, for Mythic Plus and stuff like that. So my Mythic Plus takeaway is, for AoE, like I kind of projected as well, not that big of a nerf at all. Probably don't even really notice it too much. Bosses are going to notice it, because once again, stats, or the single target nerf is going to be felt more. When you're AoEing, the stats are a little bit more congealed and equalized. If they say not to run stat weights on raid bots, and you probably shouldn't. But if you do run that for an AoE situation, you'll see like your versatility is just as valuable as your crit or haste or whatever, for AoE situations. Stats get a little bit normalized when you're AoE and you're hitting all these targets. things have different values when you're doing that. You know, a lot of your value for certain stats might be because you are trying to fit things into an execution sentence and this and things like that, right? But when you're AoEing, it doesn't matter as much. Your damage is just, you're just pressing buttons as fast as you can and doing damage as fast as you can. And so the stats get a little bit more normalized there. So the AoE nerf itself, you won't really feel it that much. And if you're playing full AoE anyways, where you're only casting Divine Storm, then you probably should still just be playing Herald anyway, like on Broodtwister in the raid, or in a Mythic Plus where you're doing a gigantic pull, like 20% of trash in one pull and popping Bloodlust. You know, still Herald's going to be good there anyways, so you know, you'd be doing that. So anyway, that's kind of where all the misconceptions and where all the frustrations were, I think, yesterday. There was also at least one bug yesterday, and it was Wrathful Descent. This was at 100% instead of 125%. So this was this was noticeably hurting Templar's AoE capabilities by having that. Not that it's like the biggest thing in the world, but it definitely was hurting Templar's AoE. That was reverted even last night. Sims also were not working yesterday until I believe like pretty late in the night. So I had some people angrily leave comments. 3% nerf. I have 20% nerf on my Sims, and I'm guessing maybe these are people from Discord or something like that. What I'll say about the Ret Discord is this: there are some really smart people in there. Bolas is in there, who I often quote, right? There's some really smart people in there, but generally speaking, just like every other class Discord, just like every other spec Discord, 95% of people in there don't know what the heck they're talking about, okay? So it's not a great source of information unless you're getting it directly from one of those very top end people. Even some of the people that have ranks in that Discord don't know what the hell they're talking about. So if you're not getting it from something Bolas says, or there's some other people too, but I don't know if they're really public. Bolas at least is so public. He does Wowhead articles and stuff like that. But there's some other people in there that are intelligent as well, and you know, you should you can listen to them pretty well. But yeah, the 20% number is basically, that's what was all over the Ret Discord last night. People were like, it's 20% nerf, it's not 3% nerf, and someone would have to say it's just the Sims are broken, all that kind of stuff. So generally speaking, it's fine. I had a great night in raid, did very well overall for like as far as performance goes. Felt fine in raid. Again, raid, you have full buffs and everything like that. So it was a lot less noticeable in raid than doing other things. But yeah, it was pretty fun. So that, I think that pretty much covers everything. It's about a 3% nerf. Who knows? Maybe they'll buff us back a little bit. Probably not, because they're going to see performance being relatively similar. So they probably won't buff anything else. But about a 3% nerf and all these new talents. And we will now start talking about the talents. Sorry that was a little bit long. But yesterday was a long day with a lot of people complaining and a lot of people worried and a lot of people doing this and that. And I wanted to address that for all the people because, you know, the number one thing we try to do here is just kind of tell the truth, try not to sensationalize things, and just kind of tell you what the best stuff is, and, you know, do with it what you will. You can still play other stuff if you want. I'm not going to judge you. I don't really care. Let's go through these Paladin talents. So at the top, we have the same things: Lay on Hands, Aura, that's automatically talented. We get all of our auras now, Crusader Aura included, and Hammer of Wrath talented automatically. In the next row, Cleanse Toxins, that's normal. We have Imperial Ward. So this is something that when you use Lay on Hands, you put armor on your target now. It also ignores like Mortal Strike effects. So that's mostly a PvP thing, but there has been times where there's healing reduction in raids and stuff as well. So this would go through that and be a very powerful tool on a boss like that. Fist of Justice is now just 1 point, just reduces. I hope I'm leaving my mouse on these, but Fist of Justice is the same talent, but it's just 1 point now. So you can 15 seconds cooldown off of your Hammer of Justice. These are the talents I have selected right now are like for just general raid, but there's what we're going to talk about is you can just pretty much choose any of these that you want. Over here, so we have some Mythic Plus talents or PvP talents in Blinding Light and Repentance. And then, so those are the same thing as always, guys. And then Light's Continent underneath it reduces the cooldown by 15 seconds of those abilities. So whatever one you choose, you can also reduce the cooldown of it. You know, if you have it, it's probably a pretty decent talent to take. So if you're going to be using your Blinding Light on cooldown anyways, well, you get more uses of it if you take Light's Continent. Turn Evil, same thing as always. We do have a little bit of a added talent to Turn Evil though. We have Reg Evil. Turn Evil's cast time is reduced by 100%. Instant cast. So again, if you're going to be using it, in the last expansion in Dragonflight, there was like some ads that you could instant kill with your Turn Evil. Obviously, you would want Wrench Evil. That way, you don't have to sit there and cast it like a dork or whatever. Stand Against Evil. Turn Evil now affects 5 enemies. So this would be a case where if there was 5 enemies that you could one-shot in a dungeon or something like that, like Unelite, Undead or whatever, then you could use this, and I assume one-shot all of them, if that was the case. So that's an interesting ability for you there. Obviously, we have Greater Judgment. We already talked about that. Divine Steed, that's normal. Healing Hands, still going to be kind of the play here. That's the same thing. After Image, those two are the same, nothing new. Adjust Reward. When Cleanse Toxin successfully remove something, you heal them. This is not a very good talent. All the heals are pretty low, generally speaking, for how big our health pools are. 96,000 health when you have 7 million health or something isn't very much, to say the least. Down here we have Holy Reprieve, a new talent. Your forbearance duration is reduced by 10 seconds. It's not that good of a talent, but you have to choose talent somewhere, so I have that one selected. Cavalier is the same, 2 charges. Here we have Divine Spurs. This talent's interesting, but I haven't found a great use for it yet. But Divine Steed cooldown is reduced, but the duration is also reduced by even more. So it's like you get more Divine Steeds, but they're really much worse. Especially if you have Templar and you're increasing your Divine Steed anyways, you don't really want to just lower it even more. So it's an interesting talent. It's good for a lot of quick movements, right? You just gotta get out. Or I guess it's kind of meant for that. Divine Spurs. Next, we have to choose between Blessing of Freedom, which you should know what that is, and Steed of Liberty. So Divine Steed also grants Blessing of Freedom for 3 seconds, and then it tells you what Blessing of Freedom is. So basically, this is a solo talent, or I'm never going to cast Blessing of Freedom on anybody else talent, and so you can get it with Divine Steed. And then Rebuke obviously is our kick. Punishment is you cast a Crusader Strike when you interrupt successfully, a Mythic Plus talent, largely. Sanctified Plates, obviously still a must take here, for all cases. Unbound Freedom, same thing as always. This is the one that you cast freedom on somebody else and it also puts it on you. Also increases movement speed. Divine Toll, same thing as always, just got a new icon. Obduracy, just changed to 1 talent point instead of 2, so that's a good change. I believe it was 2 before. Maybe it might have already been 1. But either way, Obduracy is the same thing. Divine Reach of your auras. This is mostly for Holy Paladins, I believe, with Aura Mastery. Blessing of Sacrifice, same thing as always. Divine Resonance versus Quickened Invocation. Divine Resonance is still going to be the play. And same as always, didn't change at all. So far, we've only had a couple nodes where, I think only actually 2 nodes that are throughput nodes. So Divine Toll, you're always going to take. Divine Resonance, you're always going to take. Blessing of Protection, you should know what that is. Consecrated Ground, this was moved over from the Ret tree. So this is the same talent, nothing new. It was with Rush of Light over here on the Ret tree. And that just makes your consecration bigger. Unbreakable Spirit lowers the cooldown of your defensives. Pretty good talent. Improved Blessing Protection, same thing. Now we have Divine Purpose with Sacred Strength. As of right now, Divine Purpose is going to be the thing that you're going to want to take here. You're not going to want to take Sacred Strength. Divine Purpose works really good with Templar. For Herald single target, maybe you would take Sacred Strength. That's something I would have to simulate, because right now Herald single target isn't the play. But it would be interesting. Is Divine Purpose still better though? Divine Purpose is a better talent, so I imagine it's probably still the play. But that is one thing I haven't tested out yet. Is Herald single target, the difference between these two talents. But it's probably still Divine Purpose. So again, nothing new. Here, nothing new again. You can either lower the cooldown of your sacrifice, or you can recompense, which is your judgment does more damage. Holy Aegis, so this is your critical strike chance by 4%. Definitely have to take this. You can't lose 4% haste and 4% crit. Down here, we have Lightforged Blessing. So this is your Divine Storm heals your group. Well, only 2 people now. So this is good for Mythic Plus, good for Broodtwister, a little bit extra healing. Again, none of these healing things for Ret are actually that impactful, but it's something. This is an interesting new talent. Lead the Charge. Divine Steed reduces the cooldown of a nearby ally's major movement ability by 3 seconds. So it's kind of like a crappy, is it Time Spiral? It's an evoker ability for sure. It's kind of like a bad version of that. But then it also increases your movement speed by 3% as well. So you can zip around there. So I play a Dark Iron Dwarf right now. They have increased movement speed while indoors, which is most raids. And then I also have this, right? And then I have speed on a piece of my gear. I'm just zooming around in there. It's pretty nice. Next we have Worthy Sacrifice versus Righteous Protection. So Righteous Protection is probably the better of these two talents. We'll talk about Worthy Sacrifice. But Righteous Protection, it actually makes you immune to poison and disease. So if you're doing especially a Mythic Plus, right? It could be useful in raid or whatever too. But especially, I'm thinking like Mythic Plus trash and bosses that put poisons or diseases on somebody, and you can just immune it for them. So that's actually pretty useful. It's very niche, but useful talent for Righteous Protection. However, this Worthy Sacrifice one, I played with this last night. So this is a really good talent to make sure you're getting value out of your recompense. However, if somebody in your raid makes a catastrophic mistake, or in one case, disconnects. Bloodbound Whore on Mythic had a player disconnect, and when he got hit by the beam, so he's DC'd just standing there. The beams are going around in a circle. Gets hit by a beam, and this triggers, and the first tick of it hit me for like 3 million damage. So not great in that case. Basically, if there's going to be anything that's like super one-shotty like that, then it's probably not good to take. However, on Broodtwister, I was actually surviving pretty well. I ended up taking it off just because I was scared. But Broodtwister actually was working really well. I didn't have it off because on my other spec I still had it on. I play Herald on Broodtwister. And I still had Worthy Sacrifice on. And it was working fine. I died 0 times in probably like 15 pulls of Worthy Sacrifice. So it is usable, but you got to beware. If there's stuff that's going to chunk you for millions of damage, then you probably can't use it. Holy Ritual. After our allies are healed when you cast blessings on them. So this is, and I believe does it heal you too? No, just your ally, who you do. So again, it's not a big amount of healing. It's pretty much nothing. I have it on mostly just because I'm unbound freedoming people, and so I'm just throwing a heal on them too when I do it. Blessed Calling. Allies affected with your blessings have even more movement speed, so again, more speed, more running around. This Inspired Guard. Divine Protection increases healing received. So Divine Protection isn't nearly as good as what it used to be. This is a good, it's a interesting way to do it, right? So you pop your defensive. If you're popping your defensive during a damage event, right, which is usually when you would do it, your healers are pumping healing, then you're taking more healing. So that's actually, it's a good way to do it without making the Divine Protection itself just immune all the damage. It's an interesting take on it. I like the talent personally. Here we have Vengeful Wrath. This is, let's just keep going this way. Judgment of Light, same as always. You judge the target, and people are healed. Again, a very low amount of healing. We have Golden Path. It's your Consecration heal, same as always. Nothing new. Selfless Healer. This is your Flash of Light healing. This is not really going to affect you too much as Ret. You're probably not doing too many flashes of light in any kind of endgame content. So Selfless Healer is probably not too big, but if you do play, you know, over here, if you play Light's Celerity or whatever, then you could combine that with Selfless Healer for sure, if you do choose to play that way. Eye for an Eye. This is mostly a PvP talent. This is a very old school talent. This talent was in literally old classic World of Warcraft. Vengeful Wrath is the same talent. It's a little bit buffed, so it makes your Hammer of Wrath a little bit more potent there on execute. And there's 2 points of this. You take it because it's throughput. Again, we haven't had much throughput. We had 3 throughputs here in the middle. We have some crit here. And now we have another throughput talent. So you take it just because it's extra damage, and there's not a lot of extra damage on the Paladin tree anymore. Here is just your auto attacks heal. Again, a very small amount. Seal of Might. You need this for the 4% mastery and strength. So this is a big talent for you there. Stoicism stun effects. So this would only be useful for PvE content. So it's good for PvP content. But for PvE content, it's really only useful if you're doing a niche thing where there's a big stun or whatever. And it needs to be a big stun. If it's only a 1 second stun, then you're not really reducing much by 20% there. But if it's a big stun, you know, if you can get a second or 2 off of it, a certain boss does a big stun or whatever, certain mechanic, then you could use it. But again, very niche for PvE. Face Armor, Word of Glory, God's Armor. This is not a new talent. Of Dusk and Dawn. This is, again, not a new talent here. We just lost Seal of Order, essentially. So, same thing as always, Dusk and Dawn. This is also throughput, so you need to take this. Lightbearer. I like this talent. Some people have kind of, you know, looked down on it. Obviously, it could be stronger, but I kind of like it. 10% of healing done to you is then given to nearby allies, up to 4 nearby allies, divided evenly among them. So healing gone on you is also double, or not doubling, but 10%ing up on other people. Just more effective for your healers. If you're in a raid, I see there's no reason not to take this in raid. Obviously, up to 4 nearby allies. It works in Mythic Plus as well for your whole team. So I see no reason not to take it with all the talent choices that we have that are basically just preference. So you can take that. Light's Revocation. I don't like this talent. I talked about this when it first came out, and I'm going to criticize it again here. You're going to see this talent being suggested like on Wowhead and stuff. It's not that you shouldn't take it. It's just as valuable as some of the other ones. Like, it's just as valuable or more valuable than the auto attacks healing. However, let's go over what it does. Light's Revocation. Removing harmful effects with Divine Shield heals you. This is almost never going to help you for PvE content, but it will help you in PvP. This heal cannot exceed 30% of your health, however, so it only helps you so much. And Divine Shield can now be cast with Forbearance active. So basically, that's why people are taking it. So basically, if somebody accidentally lay on hands you, we've all had this happen. Somebody lay on hands you, you know, your Holy Paladin, obviously, usually, to save you, right? Which is nice of them. But then you need to bubble for something, and you can't do it because you have Forbearance. Forbearance is a thing that should not be in the game anymore. This is a classic World of Warcraft type thing. We're one of the only things in the game that has this, that has something like this. It doesn't make a ton of sense because so many other things, like I guess like hypothermia, is that still a thing for frost mages where you can't double ice block? And I get that because they can cast ice block twice, or at least they could back in the day. But we can't bubble twice. Our cooldown's long. Our cooldown's longer than Forbearance. We can't double bubble. And we should be able to use our different abilities. You should be able to bubble and lay on hands. Bop too, especially because they've they've reduced. It must, again, this has to be a PvP thing, actually. In PvP, it would be overpowered against melee compositions to bubble then bop. So this is purely a PvP type thing. And because of that, I don't do much PvP anymore these days, and I don't care for this, if I'm just being completely honest. For PvP, it's a pretty good talent. For PvE, it's basically saying if you get lay on hands randomly or bopped randomly, at least you can bubble. There are niche uses to this. Nexus Princess on Mythic, you can remove Queen's Bane with Bop. And so you could Bop and then bubble another one off or whatever, in theory, right? So there could be niche uses for it. I'm not saying it's never going to be used, or you could just use it because you want to use it. Like I said, it's just as good as half the other talents. But yeah, I just have some problems with this talent because it is so PvP based. Forbearance is PvP based. And the game has moved away from that for like every other class or spec, but for some reason for Paladins, it has not. And so I find that a little bit troubling because, you know, I'd like to be on the same playing field as everybody else. And, you know, nobody else has these PvP things. Not that nobody else does, but most specs do not have these PvP things to worry about when it comes to that. So, let's just move on from Paladin side. When it comes to the Templar talents, all these are the same as they were before. When it comes to the Herald of the Sun talents, all the talents are the same as they were before. And when it comes to the Retribution side, all the talents are the same as they were before. Nothing was tuned or changed over here that would make you have to do anything. Basically, we lost some throughput. Make sure you take all the throughput nodes on the Paladin side. We'll go over these. Divine Toll, Divine Resonance, Divine Purpose. So you got 3 divines here to take. You have your Holy Aegis, you have your Seal of Might, you have your Dusk and Dawn, and you have your Vengeful Wrath. And I believe that's all of the throughput talents that are necessary. This is technically a throughput talent, Punishment. I don't even know if we went over Punishment, but it's not new. It's just when you interrupt, you cast Crusader Strike. Now that I say that, I think we did go over that. But again, if you're not interrupting, it's not going to help you at all. So this is one of my raid specs. What I can do, if you just want to be like, hey, I want to play what he plays, I'll put in some of the specs I made last night. So I'll put in my full single target one. I will put in I'll put in just different specs that I have based on the content. So I'll put in what I currently have for my Mythic Plus spec. I'll put in my single target raid, and I'll go through my other boss specs and see if I have any differences, and I'll put those in too. So if you just want to copy, you can do that. If you want to do your own, that's more than fine. And just make sure you grab the throughput talents and you'll be good. And a lot of the other stuff is just up to you and what you want to do and the type of content you do and how you want to do that content. Do you want a lot of the speed with like your blessings giving speed and this? Like that's where my single target raid talents kind of went to, is increasing my own speed inside the raid, because that's useful for me. But you don't have to do that. You could be like, well, I want to do all this other stuff with, I don't care that the healing is low, I want all the healing stuff or whatever. It's more than fine. It's however you choose to play when it comes to that type of stuff. So no issues there. So hopefully everybody's fine. Hopefully everyone is settled down from yesterday. Again, not huge nerfs. I was still near the top of meters on a lot of the fights in raid. Still able to top meters in Mythic Plus. I don't think it's that big of a nerf. Just like I said, wouldn't be. And it might even be less than 3%, honestly. And so I know it feels bad with the haste. We will get more haste as the expansion goes on, I promise. And you will feel better. So there's no doom. We're not dead. There's still issues with Ret, right? There's still issues with Ret. Defensiveness, I think, has gone too far, which I've been saying since beta. Like the lack of defensiveness, I should say, has gone too far. But a lot of other things are actually just fine. So that'll be it for this one, guys. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.